Welcome, everybody. Nice to have you all on board, as they say. Here we are with the cities, great cities of the world, and today it's going to be Prague. This is our maiden voyage, so there could be some technical glitches along the way. So I'm sure you'll appreciate that. And at this wonderful time where we're learning how to use more and more of this wonderful technology to reach out to people, make you all feel like you're connected to the world at large. Those that usually like to travel, like myself, we can't. So this is a one way of being able to do that. If any of you have ever been to the city of Prague in the Czech Republic, then you know how beautiful and gorgeous it is. I've been there quite a few times. And hopefully, if you've not been there, then wow, you're in for a great treat. This is one of the most beautiful cities in all of Europe. And at one time, it was the center of all art and music in Europe, not Vienna, but Prague. Prague, of course, is one of the three crowns in the Habsburg Empire. If you've ever seen the Habsburg Empire's royal crest, there are three crowns. The one in the middle is Vienna, the one on the left is Prague, and the one on the right is Budapest. And those three cities benefited greatly from the Habsburgs, who ruled for 750 years in Europe to create some amazing, amazing architecture, art, and music. My presentations will be all about art and music and architecture. A little bit of food maybe thrown in periodically. They won't be about world wars. They won't be about conflict. None of that interests me. So I can't speak to you about it. So it would be a blank wall. But as far as art and music and architecture and great people go, boy, these cities that we're going to visit over the next few weeks are going to be amazing. Now, we all need a place to stay. And so I'm just trying to find out why I'm not moving here. All right, give me a second. Okay, I run into my first glitch. Here we go. Okay, slideshow, current slide. All right, this is where we're staying. How about that? You'll find that when we travel over the next 4 weeks, 8 weeks, we will be staying at some of the nicest 4.5 to 5-star hotels in the cities we're visiting. When I've always traveled with my people to Europe for 35 some odd years, we always stayed in really amazing palaces or amazing hotels that were very close to everything in town. And when you travel, that's what you want to do. Unless you're on a riverboat, then you have your hotel that floats with you. This is a gorgeous hotel. It's called the Grand Mark Hotel, and it truly is wonderful. It's about 9 minutes away from everything you'd ever want to see in Prague. It's close to the old square. It's close to the Opera House. It's close to the Rudolphinium, which is the concert hall in Prague. It's close to the clock that everybody wants to see, and some gorgeous restaurants, places to eat. A gorgeous bookstore, English-only bookstore. It really, truly is amazing. Gorgeous restaurant. As you can see, it has a gorgeous outdoor patio. That's absolutely fantastic place to have lunch. Or if you'd like, you could go to the bistro or the bar. There's nothing you cannot have in this lovely hotel. It's not outrageous expensive, but it truly is quite lovely. And there's a view of it today. You'll notice that all the cities we're going to visit over the next 8 weeks are all pre-COVID. So you're not going to see people with masks on because we wouldn't be traveling there anyway. So just keep that in mind if that's something you're thinking about. These places are all available for everyone to go to visit as soon as we get rid of all of this. So really quite amazing. Free Wi-Fi and really and concierge service. Really lovely hotel. Now I want to start with a piece of music. There is a piece of music universally known around the world by a lot of people, and they may have heard it but weren't sure where it was from, but they loved it. Everybody loves melodic classical music or melodic music in general. This foots the bill. And this piece of music, which is called the Moldau, which is from a much larger work by Bedřich Smetana, who was born in Prague. He wrote a large, massive work of 6 tone poems. And one of those tone poems is called the Moldau. Now, the Moldau is the name of the river that runs through the middle of Prague. And we'll see that river in a few minutes. The real name is Vltava. Vltava is the Czech name. Moldau was the German name. Remember, at one time, in a lot of the countries in Europe, there was a bully in every country. And the bully of this part of the world was Germany. So everybody spoke German, all the words German, so on and so forth. But once they're able to loosen up the bounds and get things going, of course, everything's getting back to normal. This is the Vltava River. Here's this beautiful piece of music by Bedřich Smetana called The Moldau. Now, we're not going to hear the whole piece of music. In fact, we won't hear the whole piece of music of any music we hear on my presentations, because otherwise we'd be here for about 8 or 9 days with one country and have to order a lot of pizza and wine. And we don't have the budget for that. Have a listen and enjoy The Moldau. Get the idea. The river flowing. You can hear it in the strings. You can hear it in the woodwinds as the river is flowing. And of course, as that piece unfolds, it's called a tone poem. You're wondering what kind of music is a tone poem? Well, it's in the name. Tone, sound, poem. A poem in sound. Logical? And so as the river flows through the countryside of the Czech Republic, or originally Bohemia, when this piece was written, you pass peasants having a wedding, you pass farmers cutting stuff in the field, and then eventually it makes its way to Prague. The Moldau, or the Vltava, by Bedřich Smetana. Gorgeous. I'm going to quickly show you just some of the older ancient architecture of Prague. There's not a lot of it, but there's what we call rotundas. These are rotundas, and they're the remaining chapels, if you like, of churches that did exist. 11th century is about as far back as we can go, and this is the interior. I have to remember that, you know, this is very, very much a part of the world where Christianity had a huge influence It was Prague is known as the city of 100 spires. Prague also is known as the Golden City. Sometimes, if you're high up, when we get up to Prague Castle later, depending on how the sun is shining, it comes down on all the roofs of Prague and it looks golden. It's gorgeous, especially at sunset. So Prague has a number of beautiful names, 100 spires, because at one time there were 100 spires, not necessarily 100 churches, but spires on various buildings. And here you can see all the Gothic architecture inside this particular rotunda. Here's another tiny rotunda, now surrounded entirely by hotels and so forth and so on. And here's another one. And all of these are the 11th and 12th centuries, named after different saints and important. Now, this is the Basilica of St. George, and this is built in the 11th century. It has been added to over time, as you know anything about churches in Europe, and it's almost impossible to visit any wonderful city in Europe without seeing churches, because they're the oldest buildings in most cities because of they stood a lot longer. They stood the test of time, and they tended to be rebuilt over and over again. And when you have a look at this church, it didn't look like this in the 11th century, that color in particular, and it didn't have the top roof, which looks like a Greek frieze and so forth. But these churches were built over time. This church also, like a lot of churches in Europe, is not used as a church anymore. This is a concert hall. So you could come to a concert here at 1 in the afternoon, 6 in the evening, 9 o'clock at night, and it's inside Prague Castle. This church is inside the castle itself, second largest castle in Europe. We'll see more of the Prague Castle as we move along. And this is the interior, steps going down to a crypt and steps going up into the chapel itself. Now the Charles Bridge. Wow. The Charles Bridge, one of the most famous bridges in the world, outside of, say, the Ponte Vecchio, the bridge in Florence. This is an amazing, amazing structure. And as you can see by its design, it has Roman influence. Remember, this is part of the Roman Empire. This goes back a long, long way. And you can tell it's not a Greek bridge because the Greeks didn't know how to build arches. They just didn't have the talent for that. This is an amazing bridge. All of the statues that you see on top of the bridge, most of them now, not this picture, this is a picture I took many years ago, they've all been replaced by copies. The reason for that is that they were all pitch black from the blackness and the soot and the dirt in the air. And so they've all been replaced. New ones have been put in place. The old ones were cleaned, and they're in a museum that's at the far end of the bridge. But they're all saints, different saints and different stories from Christian mythology and so on. This bridge is really important because talent. You walk this bridge from about 9 a.m. in the morning until sundown. There's bands playing, people selling CDs, jewelry sellers, people selling books. I mean, it's like everywhere else in Europe. If you have a purse or you have a wallet, make sure you know where it is at all times. Gypsies are everywhere in Europe, and they love places like the Charles Bridge because where crowds are. And gypsies are really talented, very, very talented. You see a woman with a baby carriage, don't stop to say hello. Oh, what a cute baby. By the time you're done, all of your wallets have been taken. So very important to remember that when you travel in Europe. Once you do that, then you can enjoy your day. They won't bother you. That's the Vltava River, or the Charles River, that we spoke of. It's one of my favorite shots. Praha, by the name, is the Czech name for Prague, Praha. And this is beautiful. This is gorgeous. This is sunrise in the morning, just coming up with a little bit of mist. That big, tall building you see in the distance, that's the Gunpowder Tower. They had water towers and gunpowder towers, where they would store both water and gunpowder, depending on if they were under siege or whatever. And they're gorgeous buildings. We'll see them up close a little later on. Now, all of these that you've seen so far was built in the Gothic era of the world. So from about 1110 to about 1400, 1380 is when these buildings were originally built, and then added to along the way. For example, this is St. Vitus, the church in Prague Castle. And in it, there's the Vladislav Hall. You'll notice the flying buttresses. They aren't real, they're fake. A lot of flying buttresses on churches throughout Europe aren't there to hold the walls up, but they were a lovely, lovely decorative feature. And so these were added to this particular church. They spent 1200 or so years, maybe a little less than that, building this church. To go there, we have to go early in the morning. If we go later on in the day, it is crowded, packed to the walls with people. Everybody wants to go inside. This is an early morning. You can see that golden light that I was talking about. That when it hits the roofs of all of the buildings in Prague, it's gorgeous. And of course, it's coming through the stained glass, some beautiful stained glass in this building. Some of it's very modern, some of it's very old. And of course, you can see the gorgeous arches of the Gothic walls and the ceiling. A tremendous, huge, massive church. And there's a view of it from the outside. Absolutely beautiful building. You know, I was wondering, you look at stained glass from the outside, it looks like nothing, but you have to be inside to see the glory of it. All of these stained glass windows, by the way, were taken out during the First and Second World War, put into boxes so that they didn't get broken and so forth. And then when all of the stupidity was over, they put them all back in. And so we have a chance to have the originals to be able to look at it, which we're quite fortunate for. This is a gorgeous view. This is the Church of Our Lady Before Tin. Now, the Church of Our Lady Before Tin is actually behind the casino in Prague. And this is the best view to see this church. Well, because when you're in the old square, Wenceslas Square, you can only see the two towers on the right. The left. You can't see anything else. You can see they've got scaffolding up because the casino is in front of it. The casino, of course, was built much later. But you'll also get a chance to see some of the gorgeous row houses and buildings that were built in Prague much later in the foreground. Beautiful, beautiful architecture of the pre-Second World War and so forth. Really quite lovely. Those apartments are very, very expensive. And you get a chance to see the tile, and you get a chance to see New Prague or modern day Prague in the distance up on the hill. If you've ever been to Vienna, there's old Vienna, and then there's New Vienna on the other side of the Danube, which looks a lot like what you're looking there in Prague. Now, a lot of those buildings were built by the communists when they were here. Ugly, 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 ugly stone, cement zips. They cost a fortune to tear down. They're slowly doing it. The communists had no taste whatsoever. And so consequently, they didn't care where they built their buildings. But slowly they're disappearing. But a lot of them, as you can see, are still in the distance. That view is from the castle. So here we are. We're still at the castle. We haven't left yet. Look at this amazing, amazing. This is the Vladislav Hall. This is a Gothic hall. What you might say, well, there's nothing in it. Well, no, there never was anything in it. That doorway you see at the left near the back where the people are, that's the doorway for the horses. Horses would come up 2 flights into this hall. And the stairs and everything aren't real stairs. They look like stairs for horses. They're quite remarkable. And all the knights in full armor and all of their heraldry would come into this hall. And then the door at the very end that you can see at the back of this picture, that's a small chapel with a beautiful organ in that little tiny chapel. Might hold maybe 50 people max. It's unbelievable what's in this castle complex. There's a little town in here called the Golden Lane. I mean, it truly, truly is phenomenal. So there's the picture of the church. Now, we saw it from up top. Now we're closer down, and there's a casino in front of it, and then all the wonderful places to eat. Our hotel, by the way, is just to the right and around the corner. Ideal location for us. But isn't that fantastic? I mean, just look at the beauty of that on a beautiful day. I've never been to Prague when there was a bad day at all. At night, it might rain a little bit, but not during the day. Isn't that fantastic? Truly, truly. This is an organ that's in the convent of St. Agnes of Bohemia. Remember, I said this part of the world was originally called Bohemia. Then it was called Czechoslovakia, and now it's called the Czech Republic. It became the Czech Republic when Slovakia or Slovenia decided to go off on their own. And so Prague and the rest of Czechoslovakia became the Czech Republic. Borders change, people move. It's really quite a fantastic and sometimes heartbreaking thing that happens. Look at that organ, gorgeous work. You have to remember that a lot of pipe organs they built into the churches. So if you wanted to tear that organ out, you'd have to tear the building down as well around it. And because the building acts as a resonator. That's why when you're in these big churches and you hear the organ playing, the sound is phenomenal because the organ is built right into the sound. And there you have another view of it. That's the opposite end. The pipes that you saw are behind us, and the organ itself is in front of us. Isn't that amazing? Gorgeous place. Amazing. This is the gunpowder tower. So this powder tower that you see here is where gunpowder would have been kept. The water tower was the one you saw by the bridge, and this is where they kept the gunpowder. Pretty fancy tower, but they had to build something strong, incredibly thick walls. Just off to the right, you can see a building. That's one of the most beautiful Art Deco cafes in Europe. Art Deco Cafe. Our hotel, by the way, is just through the arch of that and a little bit to the right. But isn't that an amazing structure? Look at that. And it has all the different shields of all the different knights that were part of all the different regions of Prague on it still to this day. No, there's no gunpowder in it anymore. But this tower also is black. This would have been an entirely different color originally, but that's all the pollution that has been on it. It would cost a fair fortune to clean that tower. But isn't that's beautiful, beautiful. This is another one of the convents of St. Agnes of Bohemia. This is just a different view of it. And you can see the Vltava River off to the right. And everything was built down by the river because everybody traveled by boat unless they were traveling by cart or horse. So everything had to be right down on the river. And you can see the chapel at the end where the windows are. You can see this is not a Gothic cathedral at all. Small windows, very Romanesque, with a little Renaissance thrown in for good measure. And that's what's inside. Nothing. Again, this is a concert hall. There are so many places to see and hear concerts in Prague. And thank goodness these churches have all been refurbished inside to allow us to be able to go for concerts. And so they have a small stage, they have a great grand piano, and of course, all that stone makes for fantastic acoustics. That's one of the hallways in this beautiful building. Nothing much to see. And the House of the Stone Bell. This was originally a bell made of stone that had a clapper in it, but it was eaten by the building, if you like. And now the bell is there still. You can see how it would have been hung by the top, but now it's morphed into the building itself. That's quite an amazing sight, I think. So there we have again the casino to the right, the Church of Tin in the background, and on the left-hand side is another museum. There's on the Great Wenceslas Square. It's fantastic. This is the Royal Summer Palace of Queen Anne, Queen Anne's Palace, built in the Renaissance. You can see its Renaissance by the portico. See that portico in front of it with the arches? That's a definite Renaissance feature. Michelangelo built his buildings with that kind of a portico, and it's copying what the Romans would have done when they built a portico to walk and take air and to get the sun. Beautiful gardens. There's some gorgeous gardens and greenery in Prague. The Europeans are very, very proud of having things green and lots of flowers. There's another view of it. And this was also used not only as a palace for the queen, but also a place where she can have her paramours come to visit her. This is at the very foot of the castle in Prague. And if you're in the castle and looking down, you can see this building from up on high. But this is what it looks like down below. Not always open for tourism. The gardens are, but the building itself not necessarily is. And there's another view of the other side of it. It's quite beautiful, as you can see, with the neoclassical, with the columns or the Ionic capitals on the top of them. And isn't that gorgeous? That's what these buildings originally look like. That's all been cleaned up. And that particular kind of art, by the way, you may not know this, is called graffiti. Graffiti. All right. So, how do you do that? Well, simple. You paint the wall white, and then you paint the wall black. And then you scratch off and leave what's left to create the images. Isn't that amazing? Graffiti as opposed to graffiti. Graffiti means to take away. Graffiti means to add to. Hey, that's fantastic. Yes. Anyway, this is the ball game hall, 16th century, that was built. Those bricks that you see, they look three-dimensional. They aren't. That's a flat wall. That's all done with painting. Isn't that? And again, it's another way of doing graffiti. Quite amazing when you look at some of the ancient architecture that exists in Europe. There's a better, closer look at it. That's tremendous. That's why it's so wonderful to travel. And there we are up close. Think of the work involved. And of course, we don't know who the artists are. We have no idea. That's the case for a lot of art in Europe. Time for some more music. Let's have a listen. I'll tell you what it is in a minute. Yes. No. Antonin Dvorak. So probably one of the most famous composers of the pantheon of classical composers. Antonin Dvorak was born in Nové Vezes, which is a little tiny town about 45 minutes outside of Prague. His father was a butcher and an innkeeper. And because of that, little Dvorak met people from all around Europe because they would stay the night at the inn. His father would feed the horses, repair their coaches, and then in the morning they would travel the rest of the distance to Prague. And so they brought their own musicians with them. There was invariably a party. They had a small little ballroom in the inn, and that's where Dvorak began to develop his love of music. Dvorak played the viola. In fact, he was the violist in the Prague Symphony when Bedřich Smetana, we heard his music, the Moldau, was the conductor. So you see how you can pass these things on from one generation to the next. Of course, Dvorak is well known for not just his Slavonic dances, his 9 symphonies, the final one he wrote called The New World, when he spent 3 years in the United States. His cello concerto is beautiful. He also was a very good friend of Johannes Brahms. Johannes Brahms, the great, great romantic composer from Germany and eventually in Vienna, he befriended Dvorak. Brahms didn't like people very much, but Dvorak, he was drawn to. and he gave him a cigar the first time he met him. Now, Dvorak, if Brahms gave you a cigar, you were buds for life. Brahms smoked cigars continually. And Dvorak had written some piano pieces in a competition. And Brahms heard them and he said, you're really good. I'll tell you what, I'm going to send you to my publisher, Simrock, and they're going to publish your Slavonic dances, but I want you to orchestrate them, not for piano. And that's what he did. Now, that is a big leg up for a brand new composer to have someone like Johannes Brahms do all of that for you in the early part of your career. Isn't that amazing? Amazing. This picture, gorgeous, gorgeous picture. This is by the great Czech artist Mucha, Alphonse Mucha. He is a hero of the Czech Republic. He spent most of his life in Paris. He had one of the most wonderful studios in the 19th century. People visited his studio. You think of a French painter, they all visited Mucha because he was also a very good photographer as well. Remember, photography got into its own in the mid to the end of the 19th century. All of his paintings will be of women for the most part, and they're going to represent, in this case, music. They're beautifully done. He was an illustrator first, and then he became a painter. He was the first man to put a label on a bottle of champagne, Taittinger champagne, and the label was made by Mucha. Could you imagine if you could find in one of those old bottles, the label would be worth more, obviously, than the champagne inside. But he learned how to make tins, like chocolate soldiers. All the British talk about, a tin with a chocolate soldier. Mucha was way ahead of that. He sold chocolate, cheese, and champagne doing his amazing drawings. This is called Winter. Again, the seasons were portrayed by artists through women. Women were the seasons, the days of the week, the weeks of the year, art, music, dance, theater, architecture. The allegories of life were demonstrated by women, and Mucha was no different. These beautiful, beautiful paintings of winter. This is summer, beautiful, and you've got the summer moon. These are all paintings. They're absolutely gorgeous. This is Sarah Bernhardt. You probably heard of Sarah Bernhardt, the great actress. She posed for all kinds of people. The great sculptor in France who did The Thinker, whose name has just left me. She posed for him. She posed for Monet. She had this knack of having this great look, and there you can see a very good look. All right. This is the Schwarzenberg Palace. And this particular hall is where they played ball. Yes, they played ball in this place. Tennis was an old sport. And they would build a tea room for tea in the afternoon. They build a pool room for just the pool. And this was for the ball, to play ball in it. And look at the ceiling. It was also used as a hunter's halfway house between hunting. Remember that all of these forests around were all filled with game. And this hunting in those days was what golf is today. You do all your deals in the 19th hole when you play golf. Well, all your deals were done when you were hunting. And then the hunters would come back to this building. They'd change out of their clothes, make sure that all the animals they had caught that day were given to the gamekeeper. He would give it to the cook. It would be cooked up, and then you'd get a chance to eat it that night. How fresh, from forest to table. And look at the ceiling. Beautiful plaster work in this gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous building. And this is just for hunters. This is not meant for any particular occasion. It's fantastic. It really is wonderful. Here's another example of another building. This building has changed names and over again. Look again, the graffiti on the wall. Beautiful. It's everywhere throughout Prague. It really is. And then just to the right of us is the clock, the famous horloge, the astronomical clock. And then just behind us, looking at the picture, is a great chocolate shop. If you like chocolate cakes, chocolate goodies of all sorts, 2 floors, and you can just go chocolate nuts. It's amazing. It's a beautiful art. Yes. Let's have a listen to our third composer, our third son, if you like, of the triumvirate of Czech composers. And this is Janáček. Janáček was primarily known as a opera composer, but he also wrote some beautiful music for string quartet, duet, cello and piano in this case. And this is a beautiful piece. It's called The Rain, Coming of the Storm. Listen carefully what he does with the music, especially with the cello. It's like a storm is coming. It's on the horizon. Here is the music of the great Janáček. Beautiful piece of music. And that piece of music is from a much larger work called Fairy Tales. Fairy tales are very, very important to European classical music, to both children and adults, and obviously to composers. And because there's so much richness in fairy tales, we've kind of lost the art of fairy tales in North America because we've Disneyfied them all. We've taken out the original reason fairy tales were written. And but the original fairy tales have tremendously rich, vibrant, passionate stories to them. And so if you think of Hansel and Gretel and Little Red Riding Hood and Snow White and so forth, incredibly powerful fairy tales. And in the Czech Republic and in the Hungarian Republic, they really, and in the Russian actually as well, they love the idea of the fairy tale and the richness of it and so forth. So, it's quite amazing. I hope that you appreciated that. Now, because I have never been able to time my presentation, I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to skip on a little tiny bit. But I don't want us to pass this by. This is an amazing building. This is the Strastov Monastery, originally built in the 12th century. It is one of the most beautiful buildings in the Czech Republic. Now, right down below, you see the buildings in the foreground. That's the river. That's the Moldau, the Vltava River. The Charles Bridge is off to the left, just so you have you know where you're at. And then off to the left, up at the top of the hill, would be the Prague Castle. This is an amazing building for one really good reason. It has one of the most beautiful libraries in the world. This library, I think there's about 85,000 volumes in this library. They're not all in this space that you're looking at. But this gives you an appreciation for what the people that ran the world in those days, the church, how knowledgeable they were about everything that went on in the world. They knew astronomy and medicine, and they knew everything because they had all the original books, but they were the only ones that had the books. This was a library not for the public, not even for the wealthy. This was the library for the monks that were in the monastery. The ceiling, beautifully painted, absolutely stunning place. Now, today, you can ask permission if you're doing a project on something and you believe there might be a book here that you can use as a reference. You could stay here, take the book out, go to a reading room, get the information you need, and then the book will be placed back on the shelf. But isn't that gorgeous? And these are all over Europe. A lot of the monasteries, you think of Melk, the gorgeous monastery in Melk in Austria, just outside of Vienna. Another huge library, just stunning when you go inside. It really is amazing. I wanted to be sure that you saw that. Here's another view of it looking around. That's what's behind us. Now we're looking in the other direction. Globes of the world. All of them are made out of wood. It truly is amazing. And look at that ceiling again. It really is an amazing place to go and visit if you get a chance to go to this gorgeous monastery. As I said, originally started in the 12th century and then added to as time went on. This is the St. Nicholas Cathedral, right downtown in Prague. This is my favorite place. This St. Nicholas is amazing. It is a Baroque church beyond belief. It has concerts in it now, beautiful concerts. I've heard some gorgeous music. We're in the old town. We're right in Wenceslas Square. Behind us is the casino. Around to the left is the clock, the astronomical clock. And you see those trees? If we go down that street, you'd get to the Jewish Quarter. And if you ever go to Prague, I recommend you go and visit the Jewish Quarter. It's really quite fascinating. The historical value of it is absolutely amazing. And I had a wonderful time there one morning in the Jewish Quarter, really quite wonderful. And then as you walk out of the Jewish Quarter, you come along the street, you see all the high-end boutiques and stores, and then you end up in the square and this amazing church. Look at this. This is over the top, Baroque, over the top, big time. But then that was the whole point. That was what the Baroque era was about. It was to be over the top architecturally. All this plaster work, all the angels and the putties and the saints, because of course at that time the church was losing people to the Calvinists and the Lutherans, and they weren't making money, so they're trying to get the money back. So let's show them how wonderfully colorful and theatrical we can really be. And that's why these churches were built the way they were. That's gorgeous. But to hear a concert, it's absolutely fantastic. You get choirs in those upper, see those upper balconies, choirs up there singing, absolutely phenomenal. Amazing place. This is the Troje Chateau, and a totally different idea architecturally altogether. And it's a little more Renaissance. That staircase you can see that in a lot of the country houses in Great Britain. And this is a dining room in this particular chateau available for the public. A lot of weddings go on here. This is how they keep these buildings up and maintain them. Look at the paintings on the walls. I mean, we sure have a long way to go in North America, don't we? It really is truly wonderful. And they're so proud of this. I cannot tell you, if you've been to Prague or you've been to the Czech Republic or Hungary or Slovenia, Romania, it doesn't matter. The pride they have in the beauty that exists in their countries is really, really amazing. It's heartwarming, and they want to tell you all about it, sometimes in great English and sometimes broken English, but it doesn't matter. You want to hear their stories because they're truly remarkable. I mean, how's that for a staircase? And it's beautiful. It's a gorgeous place. It really is. This is another part of the chateau. This is on the other side of the chateau. Interesting. This is up again in the in Prague Castle. This is where the Archbishop used to live. Archbishop's house, not bad. Archbishop's houses and private castles were the most beautiful buildings in most cities in the world at one time, except for the churches, of course. And there is the Pope at the time in the rooms. Beautiful, beautiful space. And again, we're back down to St. Wenceslas Square, and again the casino, fantastic. This is one of the most beautiful buildings in Prague. This is called the Rudolfinium. I visited this building just after the water had receded, about 4 weeks before I went. The huge flood they had apparently in 2000, 2001. I'm not sure the date. This is Rudolfinium, which has the beautiful Dvorak concert hall in it. And it's a gorgeous, gorgeous concert hall. And on the right-hand side, you see that little window. It's deceptive. That's Suk Hall, a smaller chamber works hall. Josef Suk was the brother-in-law of Antonin Dvorak. And it's a beautiful, beautiful place. That's what it looks like inside. Absolutely gorgeous. And oh, sorry, that's the opera house inside. Pardon me. My slides are a little out of order. Like all great opera houses, it's beautiful. The National Opera House. And across the street from this opera house is Cafe Slava. And Cafe Slava is where the first president of the Czechoslovakia lived. Here, he was an actor, but he was a poet, and he used to go to this building a lot. This is Hotel Europa. The style, oh, you may or may not know the style. The style is called Art Nouveau, and a beautiful architectural style. Beautiful railings, wrought iron, windows made of wood. Truly, truly remarkable. This is the interior. You stay here, a Hotel Europa. It's too expensive for us, and it's a little out of the center of the city, so that's why I didn't have us stay there. Look at the ironwork, and of course, the glass on the ceiling. Amazing. There's what it looks like up close. Isn't that just beautiful? I mean, and this particular Art Nouveau didn't last for very long, maybe 15, 20 years max. It began in Belgium, kind of worked to Switzerland, and then a couple of other, Vienna, obviously. Here you can see Prague, but it really, really, it didn't last for very, very long, unfortunately. And cafes, we would be remiss if we didn't go into a cafe in Prague. All of them are beautiful. They're gorgeous. They're just the same as Vienna. All the suites are available in the cabinet you see on the left-hand side. They're all beautifully done. They don't push you away. The waiters can be a little bit finicky, but that's part of the experience of going. You can order a Cafe Schlager Kaiser, which is a coffee with a bit of alcohol in it, lots of Schlager, whipped cream on top. They'll bring you a glass of water and a couple of sugar cubes and sit and enjoy, read newspapers, get the news of the day. That's what this particular cafe looks like from the outside. And really, really tremendous. Prague was one of those cities that was lucky. It didn't get totally damaged by any of the stuff that happened in the Second World War. Thank goodness. How about this? This is the train station in Prague. Wow. Isn't that? See, one of the theories in Europe, and you'll hear this from me a great deal over the next few weeks. If you're going to build it, make it beautiful. Otherwise, don't bother. Because what's going in the building is going to be beautiful. So your art galleries, beautiful. Train stations, beautiful. You might say, well, what's beautiful of a train station? The people in it. We've lost that sensibility in North America. It's got to be utilitarian. Look at our condos and apartment buildings we live in. They're not beautiful. They're utilitarian. So if that was built like one of our apartment buildings or condos, could you imagine? Now, of course, it would cost millions and millions of dollars because that's where money goes with construction these days. It would take 150 years to build. This only took 2. So, we're dealing with an entirely different time when you wanted to get it done. You got it done. Look at this. This is inside that building. They're having a banquet. Isn't that phenomenal? That really is an amazing use of a building that's been there for a long, long time. This is some of the windows in that building. It really is phenomenal. I just thought you would. This is the main shopping street, which has a whole lot of Art Deco and Secessionist on it, and you're getting a chance to see some of these amazing architecture. Wow, it's amazing. Now let me just move on a bit. I want to go to this. Now you might say, wait a minute, that doesn't look like ancient architecture to me. No, it's not. The only place that got bombed in Prague was on this corner. And this corner was a vacant lot for a long, long time. See, these stories are amazing. And it was a vacant lot for a long time. And so they put out a tender, someone to build a building on this lot. It's very small, as you can see, but they didn't want to leave it vacant and they wanted something to be built here. So guess what? Frank Gehry, great Canadian architect, now living in LA, built this. It's called the Fred and Ginger Building. Fred on the right, Ginger on the left. He's got his arm around her waist and he's pulling her towards him. Isn't that gorgeous? It is now a combination of condo and retail, and it's absolutely phenomenal. Now, people say, well, it doesn't fit the rest of the buildings around it. No, no, no. You don't want it to fit the rest of the buildings. You want it to fit on that corner. And he found an amazing way of being able to do that. The Fred and Ginger Building. If you talk to anybody that's been to Prague and you'll say, did you see the Fred and Ginger Building? Built in 1996, by the way. And they'll say, no. You got to go back. You got to get the bus to stop and show you the Fred and Ginger. Made of steel, reinforced concrete, and perspex, a type of plastic that's not glass. There's another view of it from the other side. Isn't that just, it fits beautifully. When you look at it, it looks kind of funny in a way. It looks like that building's going to collapse. Well, that's what happened on this corner. A building did collapse. Think of all the thought process that went into making that building. It's quite amazing, I'd have to say to you. It's amazing. Anyway, so this is a downtown building. It's called the Zlatý Angel or the Golden Angel Building. It's a department store. But again, Prague can be just as modern as it can be old. It doesn't have to be otherwise. You know, here we have the Rudolphinium, not at night. We got a head-on view. And this is that's a statue of Dvorak. The opera house that we saw a few moments ago, that's about a block behind us. See what I say? Everything is close together. The Vltava River's on our left, so we're right beside the river. This is surrounded by great parkland. It is tremendous. And there is the Czech Philharmonic with a conductor conducting inside. This was during a concert that I was at, and they were doing Dvorak's Fifth Symphony. Beautiful work. It's a beautiful place, gorgeous. And of course, all the old concert halls in those days, both in North America and Europe, usually had organs built into them up at the top there. And voila, there you are. And this is the central lobby. When I was there in 2000, 2001, I can't remember the date, this entire lobby was covered in nothing but wet books and scores from the library in this building, drying out. The entire floor was covered in manuscripts and books. It was an unusual and eerie sight to see. And now this is where you go before a concert. They're doing a pre-concert chat, and there's a cafe just off to the right-hand side. That's a shot from the stage. When you're a maestro or a tour director and you're taking a group, you can get to places other people can't. So there you have from the stage angle. My favorite little place in all of Prague. It's about 15 minutes out of the center of town. It's called Bertramka. And you might go, well, what the heck is Bertramka all about? Bertramka is where Mozart finished writing Don Giovanni. This is a very, very famous and important house. It was owned by a husband and wife team. Mozart was having an affair with the wife. Our husband was a brilliant Mr. Dusek, and he was a great pianist. In fact, he's the man that put the piano sideways on the stage. You know, if you go to a concert or piano concerto, the piano is sideways. You get to see the profile of the player. It's because Mr. Dusek loved his profile. And so he thought the audience should get to appreciate the beauty of my profile, and I'm going to place the piano sideways. And that's why you now see it that way on stage. It has a beautiful museum of Mozart. This is, again, all part of it. This cafe down below is fantastic. It only seats about 35 people, and quite often I booked my groups to go there just to have lunch. Yeah, fantastic, the things you can do. Here's the National Theatre from the river. That is the pride of purpose. This theater is used for not only plays, traveling musicals, but it's also used for opera. And it's called the National Theater because this is a place where you heard the music of Bedřich Smetana. His Moldau was performed here from a large piece called My Life, Va Vlast, My Life. And it was all about the Czech Republic people. Wasn't about Germany, wasn't about France or England. It was the peoples of the Czech Republic of Bohemia. And he got, I think, 10-minute ovation after the first piece, 15, 20, 25, 30, 45-minute standing ovation when the piece concluded. That's an amazing, amazing feat. And the balcony you see on the left-hand side at the intermissions, you go out there with a glass of champagne and look at the lights. There's another view of it from the river, as you can see in the background. And you could tell it's a theater because that extra top, that's where all the flies go that rise up and down, that create part of the sets that are on the theater. And there's the interior. We've run out of time. Oh my gosh, I had no idea how long this was going to take. Daniel, are you still there?
Hi, George. Yes, I am. I am so sorry that we have hit our 4 o'clock mark. Thank you to everyone who has joined us. Fortunately, we have George booked for another 8 weeks, I believe.
Yeah.
So we are not going to.
I'll get better at it.
Oh no, don't be sorry. I just mean there are still 8 more hours of listening and conversation to enjoy. As we hit the 4 o'clock hour now, I will just remind folks that they can join us here each week at 3 o'clock, where we will visit different places. If you have any questions in terms of the programming or follow-up, please feel free to leave your email in the chat function before we close. George will be available again on Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. in the exact same place, where we will be discussing art all around us. If you have any other tips of knowledge or any other questions, please feel free just to write in the chat box, and we look forward to seeing you all. Tomorrow, our session is at 1:30, and it features Julie and Nicole from the Colburn Senior Center. So if you do want to enjoy that, please come by. George, thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel.
And thank you to everyone for attending.
And thanks to everybody out there. Much, much appreciated. It's so great to have an audience. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye now, guys.
Bye.